Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are watching us from. You are welcome to the Discovery Show TDS TV here on Facebook and on YouTube. This is a show that seeks to interview professionals in the diaspora who are making significant impact in the area of politics, religion, academia, and the likes. And so this evening, we come your way with another erudite interview that seeks to expose you to accurate information, that seeks to motivate you wherever you are, and then together we can rise. This show is ably supported by James Kwabena Opon, and I am your host, Precious Adade Diodu. So this evening, we are so excited and we are privileged to be sitting again with another, hardworking, another very trustworthy person, another person who is making so much significant impact in his own area. And we are so privileged to be interviewing Dr. Richmond Juvenile Ehwi this evening. He's a research associate at Cambridge Center for Housing and Planning Research, University of Cambridge here in the United Kingdom. Juve, you are welcome to the Discovery Show.
Thank you very much, Precious, for having me. It's a privilege.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And viewers, we welcome you again to the Discovery Show. We encourage you to drop your comments. We encourage you to, ask questions regarding this interview, and our guests will be willing to answer. We also encourage you to subscribe to our channel here on Facebook and on YouTube. Just share the link with other people so that they can also watch and then they can learn from it as well. So, because I've known him to be called Juvenile or Juve, I will predominantly be referring to him as Juve or Juvenile. Please pardon me, but you can call him Richmond, Juvenile, Dr. Ehwi, please. Any of them is, permissible. So Juve, just tell us a bit about yourself. Who is Juvenile? Where did you grow up? And just tell us a bit about yourself. Just be liberal with us. Thank you.
Okay. Once again, thank you very much, Precious, for giving me this opportunity to come on your show, and thank you very much to your listeners for joining the session. So, as you rightly mentioned, my name is Richmond Juvenile Ehwi. I was born in Hafasni in the Western region, but I grew up in Elubo, which is a border town on the western frontier of Ghana. I had my basic education in Elubo Catholic Primary School, and through there got to St. John's School in Secondary Takrady, and then from St. John's School got to K University, where obviously I came across Precious and other interesting people who really left an imprint on me. But just beside my academic trajectory, I think I want to also talk a bit more about where I come from and how my upbringing was, because I feel it's very significant. It has really molded me and informed most of the things I do and where I get my inspiration from. So I come from a polygamous home. I'm the 31st born of 33 children. I'm sure you don't know this, and a lot of people don't know this. Yes. So from my father's side, I am the 31st born. From my mother's side, I'm the 7th out of 8 children. Unfortunately, both of them are passed on. But then the fact that I grew up in such a large family was in itself a very interesting experience for me. By the way, I had 5 stepmothers and several grandchildren. So it was really a very busy home. Everybody was clamoring to get the attention of daddy. Daddy has to straddle between living in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. And he was a property manager, so he owned 2 hotels, one in Ghana, one in Cote d'Ivoire. So at a very early age in my life, I got exposed to what I later on understood to mean estate management or real estate. I was particularly fascinated by seeing development process emerge, right from digging foundation all the way to completing a building structure. And I guess that's why I picked my interest in issues related to land, housing, and the built environment from. So I didn't find it difficult at all choosing land economy as a program when it was introduced to me, and I was made to understand that it's essential about understanding the built environment and issues that has to do with land and a bit of drawing. I'm a bit artistic myself, so I thought, okay, I think I'll fare well if I enroll on the program. So I came to KNUST to read BSc Land Economy, very interesting program, which I highly recommend to anybody thinking about a course in the general arts or liberal arts. Yeah, so from KNUST, the good thing for me was that in KNUST, I also find myself in a company of as a very good friends, both from the academic perspective and also for my own spiritual training. I've been influenced and impacted by several people, which I can't name all of them on this particular show. Suffice to say that KNUST was a defining moment in my life because it was through KNUST that I got to know about studying abroad and the relevance of studying abroad. Yeah, so I finished KNUST and God made a way for me. I'll put it that way. Also by dint of hard work, found myself in Cambridge for my MPhil and then continue with the PhD, of course, after one gap year. And then I'm done with the PhD. I'm now doing a postdoc.
Wow, 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 wow. This is amazing. I mean, I have known you from campus, but of course, most of the things you've said here, especially on the lines of family, are very, very, very new to me, and they're also very encouraging. Thank you so much. I mean, you've been very in-depth, and we really appreciate all the information you've volunteered. I want to believe that all these are meant to encourage people that there's no restriction in life at all. There's no limitation in any way. Thank you so much. Like you said, you did study land economy in KNUST. So who is a land economist, basically? Because I know you're a land economist. Take the opportunity about 1 or 2 minutes to educate people about who a land economist is.
Do I even know who a land economist is at this stage in my life? I guess I would attempt to explain land economy based on how I've come to experience the field. And I'm sure there isn't any standard definition. The general understanding is that we draw on concepts, tools, methods, insights from several and related disciplines. For example, economics, planning, environmental studies, to understand the process of acquiring, using, developing, managing land and other built assets. And so for a land economy, a land economist will generally be interested in anything about land, from what you understand land to mean, how land is acquired, how rights over land accrue, how land rights are distributed, what you do with land, the impact it has. And the field keeps evolving. It has evolved considerably. When we enrolled, we were made to understand that at some point, land economy was very much related to agricultural management, forestry. A key part of that is because oftentimes you had people who had vast swaths of land, forest land that were going to be acquired for maybe road projects and other things, and then you need a valuer to do valuation or compensation or for the crops and other things that are found on these lands. So at some point in time, land economy was very agrarian, but of course we find ourselves in a completely different era where urbanization and city is the avant-garde when you talk about urban discourse or urban debate. So the understanding of the concept itself has moved away from a very agrarian foundations to a more urban-centric, and that is why now we see most land economists focusing on issues around housing, issues around land management and property facilities management and things like that. So I'll sum up by saying that the land economist is trained to be able to apply insights, instruments, processes, concepts from other disciplines, particularly law, planning, environmental science, to understand how land is acquired, land is used, how land is managed and developed. Yeah, I think that's how I'll sum it up.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much. Viewers, I'm reminding you again that you are watching the Discovery Show TDS TV here on Facebook and on YouTube. This is a show that seeks to interview professionals in the diaspora and beyond who are making significant impact in the area of politics, religion, academia, and the likes. And tonight, here in the UK, in Ghana, and many parts of the world, and also morning and afternoon at different parts of the world, we are sitting with Dr. Richmond Juvenile Ehwi. He is a research associate at the University of Cambridge, and he's been sharing with us his life so far. He just explained who a land economist is and what land economy is all about. So tell us, you are into land, you are into rent and all that. What is the situation, classical situation in Ghana and Africa in general regarding rents, acquisition of land properties and all that? And I say that with recourse to what we have here in the UK. You are aware that if you rent an accommodation here in the UK and most part of the world, I mean in developed countries, all you need to do is just to make a deposit, just pay your rent ahead of the month and you are sorted. But back home, I mean, people are taking like 2 years advance, 3 years and many years. And that alone cripple people, they are not able to rent. What is the situation like? Is it like we do not have robust laws, guidelines that should streamline and put our things into perspective? What is the problem? And again, because I want you to put all together because I'm sure they may be interrelated. Again, what is the problem with land acquisition in Ghana? We usually hear of litigations, land being sold to more than one person and all that. What is the situation in Ghana and Africa in general? Thank you.
Precious, that's a very big ask of me to be able to talk about these two huge subjects at this particular point in time. There are two separate things and we need to sort of break them down and then look at each one separately so that we can gain some better understanding. So let's start with the first issue regarding land, because I think partly issues around renting and everything, the foundation is land, right? Yeah. So I guess what you are asking is, why do we have so much problems in our land sector in Ghana?
Absolutely.
And why is it so chaotic or seemingly chaotic? Well, according to my understanding and from what I've come to understand, different societies adopt different land tenure system that suits them. The very origins of how we come to acquire land in itself create part dependencies, right? So typically you would find that people have acquired land or become owners of land through, for example, first settlement. So that is people who initially settled at a place at the first point in time, they now arrogate onto themselves some rights over the land, right? Other people also gain access to land through conquest, right? So you engage in some form of battle and then you overcome your foe and then you are able to plunder their land and everything. Others also acquire land through a gift. Somebody can gift you land. You can also acquire land through purchase, right? Yeah. So all these different modes of acquiring land exist. The interesting thing about land, which makes it very different from other commodities, is the fact that when we talk about land, it has very unique characteristics. So unlike any movable assets, which let's take a mobile phone, for example. If you are owning a mobile phone now, the mere fact that you are holding the mobile phone, you exercise some exclusionary use over it, which other people cannot use simultaneously as you are using it, right? But land has certain attributes that makes it possible for people to hold concurrent interest in the land, right? So for land economists in particular, when you talk about the land, it is not just the physical assets that you own, which is the subject matter. It is the body of rights in that land, right? So you may have a piece of land and you may be the original owner. Let's say you were the first person who settled on the land, right? So in land economy, you probably say you are the allodial owner. You are the owner of the land. Now, you can create a sub-interest in that particular land called maybe a lease. That means that you are giving part of this land an interest in it for another person to use for a period of time. So your ownership does not extinguish, right? Just that whatever benefits you may have acquired for that particular extent is deferred. The person that you give the land to can also use the land for another person. So the same piece of land, as in that physical asset, you can at one point in time have about 3 or 4 people exercising ownership right over it, right? When it comes to the use, then you will find that some use are deferred, others are present, others are running concurrently. So all these issues are there when it comes to land. So the concept itself is one that trying to pin it down can be a bit tricky. Now you have to talk about how do we now codify the rights that we have. So if you're able to properly identify the different forms of rights that exist in land, that is the starting point of trying to have some form of a codification where you can identify who owns what. But then in our society, most African societies, the concept of land is not perceived as a commodity that is just vested in an individual, like you can buy your shit and own it. It is often seen as a communal asset, right? So that means that anybody belonging to a particular polity or a territory or a community, that land, you own it collectively. But what you do is for the purposes of management or administration, you all agree that, okay, let's vest or let's entrust the management of this land to somebody, maybe a king or somebody fit for an elderly person. The person will hold and manage this land on our behalf, we as the subjects, right? So that naturally, if you want the land, you can easily get access to the land. This system has worked fairly well over the years until we got to a point where population started increasing and the boundaries of land themselves were not properly defined and boundaries started blurring up. Families were expanding. So if you had, let's say you had 1,000 acres of land and you were maybe just 5 people within a clan, fast forward 50 years, you are probably now around maybe 500 people in the family, the same piece of land. So everybody keeps getting limited access. So compounded with the fact that we have not been able to properly demarcate the boundaries of our land and then find a way that we recognize and identify and allocate who owns what, the problem has compounded. We find ourselves in a time where now everybody is moving to cities. Lands in cities are gradually becoming limited. You get a sense of this friction between traditional people who originally settled in one place, and the belief is that they must have natural rights over the land. But then with commercialization, urbanization, and everybody trying to get land, you see these fiduciaries, like people that we have entrusted land within their care, whose responsibility is to manage the land for the welfare or the well-being of the members of the particular landholding group, are defecting on the responsibilities that have been given them. They are reneging on their responsibilities. Some are going ahead to sell the land. Some are even misinterpreting the ownership structure. They are interpreting the ownership structure to now mean that if you're a chief, you own the land yourself. Or if you're a clan head or a family head, you own the land yourself. But then, if you're a clan head or a family head, you don't own the land yourself. As you own it, you use it on behalf of the members of the clan or the family or whatever. So all these factors have come to play in making it very difficult for us. And I don't think that we are getting to a point where we can easily resolve this, because the approach we are adopting appears not to be working for us. One, the cost of documenting and formalizing land rights is very expensive. The transaction cost is massive. And that is why we've tried a lot of things, from just registering deeds to moving on to titling. Now doing things like institutional reforms, merging the Lands Commission, creating a one-stop shop, now introducing something called what's the name? Is it the biometric site plan? A wide range of things, but still we still have the problem. Why? Because it's not just about the processes of formalizing, but the very concept of who owns the land and how are these land allocated, right? How do you validate the transaction? All these things are things that we need to look at. So I believe that for us, these are the sort of things that have compounded and made issues about land ownership, land acquisition more difficult and more complex, particularly urbanization, and the fact that we haven't been able to properly sort of document and come to an understanding of how we can effectively delineate different interests in land and then identify which groups of people. Let me give you an example. If you go to the Lands Commission now, if you want to, for example, get a land in Accra, you are advised to conduct a search, right, at the Lands Commission. Now, when you go to the Lands Commission and you conduct a search, the search report that comes will tell you, for example, that this piece of land that you are interested in Ashoma belongs to Dodu and family, right? That is what it will tell you, the clan or the family that owns the land. But that record doesn't tell you who has the legal capacity to be able to transact the land, right? So you may find, okay, this is the Dodu family. And then you go to the family, and then maybe the first person you meet may present himself, I'm the clan head. It's a system that everybody's trying to get a piece of the cake, right? So people are using very, very unscrupulous way to be able to either deceive people or subvert traditional processes of acquiring land. But this is partly because the very process that we recommend people to go and conduct itself has been found to be faulty. Instead of the search record telling you that in this particular family, the principal people that are authorized to alienate interest in land or give you land are A, B, C, and D. The record doesn't give you that. It only tells you that Dodu and family are the owners of this particular piece of land. It is then up to you to go around, search for, okay, so within this family, who are the people who are really mandated to sell the land? Now, with the current rat race for land in big cities, people don't have the time to be able to go around. If you are not maybe a real estate developer who is so much interested in developing huge volumes of houses, and therefore you don't want to commit so much money only to realize that actually the person you bought the land from is not the owner. So you want to do some due diligence, identify who actually owns the land. For most people, particularly young people who are forced to sort of start a building project, they don't have even the funds to be able to conduct the search, go around looking for who is. So they are more gullible to fall prey to the first person they come into contact to, who will show them a site plan or an indenture to say, this is it, you can see my name on it. So all these things have compounded why we have the problem. So that is what I would say for why we have so much chaos and it's quite difficult acquiring land. There are issues with the Lands Commission. I want to probably keep that for now. But let's talk about the issues regarding rents, right? Yeah, I think that over the years, my observation is that our housing policies have tended to prioritize home ownership over other forms of tenure. And home ownership is good, as in everybody at some point in time would want to be the owner of their own homes, right? It comes with a lot of benefits, the sense of security in your retirement, the fact that you can easily be quitted to another person, the fact that you can modify your house, do whatever you please with your house without thinking about, would my landlord be pleased, do I have the permit, all these things, mortgaging and everything. So home ownership is very useful. There are other economic arguments that you can find in terms of how it helps the economy and all that. But the point is, if you look at housing itself as a welfare commodity, and then you also look at what is called the life cycle, we don't start life immediately and then we become adults. We all went through secondary school, got to universities, we finished universities. Most of us did our national service. At that time, you haven't gathered enough equity or savings to be able to start a building project. So naturally, you would want to find yourself in a rental accommodation, right? So when we understand that progression, that we would always, Ghana's population is very youthful, right? We have close to about 35% of our population within the ages from 12 to about 38 or 40. That's substantial. And you see more of these people moving into rental accommodation. But because our housing policies have tended to prioritize home ownership over other forms of tenure, we see a lot of all these government intervention over the years, and even currently more skewed in favor of owning your home rather than developing a more sensitive, robust rental housing market, where you recognize that the people who are coming into the rental accommodation, one, are very young people. Most of them will be first-time renters. They don't have equity. Some of them even don't have families. They're just about starting families, or even if they have families, they probably have 1 or 2 children, right? We haven't really thought about this life cycle thing. And fed this insight into how we move forward with building housing and also thinking around housing policy. Now, the issue around why we have to pay advance rent for such a huge amount of money, it has its historical origins, obviously, after the World War and the fact that there was rent control that was imposed and other things. But fundamentally, I see it to be, one, it's an insurance problem, right? So if I'm a landlord, most of the landlords in Ghana, most of them, and I'm using most of them, do not set out to become landlords, right? So let's say I'm here, I've started a building project, I built three bedrooms, 4 bedrooms. Okay, I have a relative living there. I've got an extra room that is vacant. I can let it out, right? So most people don't start with the idea, I want to be a landlord and therefore I'm building to rent. Most people start building their houses incrementally. There are other spaces. They either give it to a family member or they rent it out, right? So the margins, what they get out of these, and most people rely on this as their major source of investment. The renting is their main source of income or things like that. So in a system where it hasn't been thought of as a business and therefore we haven't built an insurance around it, like any business, once you understand the business properly and it's well set up, you can have an insurance company that can indemnify you, understand your business and provide an insurance package for it. In the case of Ghana, the rental housing market hasn't, as generally, and I'm not talking about the private formal rental housing market, I'm talking about the petty landlords. The business hasn't been formalized in a way where people think about it as a business where I need to have a business model which I can explain to an insurance company to give me an indemnity so that if for a certain period my property is vacant, I know that I'm getting some coverage from the insurance company, right? So how do I insure myself? I can only insure myself by telling you that, okay, you Prosper coming to take my property. I'm not going to give you my property on a monthly basis. One, because we live in a country where about 90% of us work in the informal economy. In the informal economy, one of the dangers is that you don't have job security, right? Salaries are not even guaranteed. So as an investor acting logically, I won't put myself in the position where every month I have to come chasing after you, pay me my rent. What if you get laid off? What if your salary is delayed? And these things are common. We know them. We don't have to play the ostrich here. We know them. So the landlords are acting logically. Why? Because there's a huge shortfall. As I said earlier on, that our housing policies haven't looked at rental housing. So there's a huge demand for rental housing, and there's just a limited amount of stock. So the landlords are taking advantage of the huge demand and saying that if you really want the house, considering the fact that this is my main source of income, I don't have any insurance to fall on, I'm going to charge you for 2 years. Now, if you understand the concept of time value for money, if you pay somebody 5 million today, it's worth much more than 5 million even the next day or even in the next 1 hour. So it is always prudent to take the money today in bulk, then either they will reinvest the money, channel it into maybe improving their house, do whatever it is. But that gives them that security that if tomorrow you wake up and then you come and tell me that your employer has kicked you out, or because of COVID-19, your business has collapsed, they know that, well, you have committed to rent my property for 2 years. So you have to be in the property. I've already taken the money. In exceptional circumstances, you can have a negotiation and then they can refund your money then. But nobody wants the property to be vacant, because by giving it to you, I have denied other people the opportunity. So the question is, how then do we tackle this? And myself and my colleagues, the argument we make it, you can't tackle this problem by just using law, right? Yes, we have the legal provision that states that landlords are not supposed to charge advance rent for more than 6 months for a longer lease or a longer tenure. But the point is, you can only enforce that law when you have made provisions, when there are alternatives. If you say, okay, I'm prosecuting all these landlords for not doing that, the landlord can simply say, okay, fine, it's good, I'm at fault. Please take your money, I'm no longer renting my property, or whatever it is. So you realize that in terms of the power dynamics, the state is at a disadvantage in enforcing the law. And we think that the only way we can do that is to make sure that you break that monopoly power of the landlords. Make sure we have enough stock so that even if a landlord is bluffing, you can easily find another property and then rent. That will bring down, so that when you say that, well, we are charging a minimum advance rent of 3 months, and one particular landlord is still adamant and wants to charge 6 months, they know that they are losing in the market because there are alternatives. People can go elsewhere. Until you do that, the law wouldn't work. The law wouldn't work because people will still go behind and then go and pay the 6 months. Some will even go 2 years. And our research has clearly shown that people really find the 2-year advance rent very helpful. You know what? Because after you pay it for 2 years, you go to sleep. You don't have to worry about paying rent any longer. So in this COVID-19, where people were laid off from work, assuming you were paying rent every month and you were laid off from work and the salaries were no longer coming, how would you pay your rent? But because you have paid the rent for 2 years, if you got laid off, you realize that maybe you've got still 6 more months for the lease to expire, or you've got 2 years, or you've got 1.5 years. You are able to sort of buy some time, right? So we were rather surprised to see a lot of people saying that, well, we really support this practice, but for the greater majority of Ghanaians, it's a huge challenge because for some people, this advance rent amounts to as much as 20,000 Ghana cedi. And the fact is, rental housing is oftentimes a youthful tenure. It's for people who are just starting their life. Asking a young person who has just finished university or has just started their first job, offering 20,000 Ghana cedi is quite a substantial amount. So that's what I can say. I'm sure we can go on and on and on, but let me rest it here.
Wow. This is absolutely fantastic. I mean, I love the explanation. It is very clear. And I mean, later I'll read some comments. Your explanation is very clear. Thank you very much. Viewers, I'm speaking to Dr. Richmond Juvenile Ehwi. He's a research associate. In other words, he's doing his postdoctorate at the Cambridge Center for Housing and Planning Research, University of Cambridge, here in the United Kingdom. And I've known Juvenile since university days, and his explanation is apt. My executive producer for this show is Mr. James Kwabena. He said his explanation on the housing policy and huge deposit payment is very apt, and I actually agree with him to bits. So thank you very much. I've allowed us to have this extensive conversation on this because I know it's a critical issue all over Africa, in Ghana, wherever we can think of, especially with the youth. But you've given us different dynamics to it. So probably those of us who are quite prejudicial about the rent payment not being so accurate, payment in advance and all that, I think you've given different dynamics to it. Let me put you on the spot. From what you've explained, it's a bit convoluted. Would you say, therefore, that run up to 2020 election in Ghana, I know some political parties came up with different ideas, like they want to pay rent advance for youth and all that. Would you say because the situation is so convoluted, this was a good stopgap measure just to help the youth alleviate those problems they had? Would you say it's a good policy, or it should have looked beyond just now?
Thank you very much, Precious, for this question. Last week, I had an interview with BBC Africa on the same issue about the proposed National Rental Assistance Scheme. It's a political manifesto. It hasn't yet been implemented. We have done a research that we take that policy as that political party manifesto as a starting point to be able to sort of understand this. We need to step back and then ask ourselves, what is the motive for that? Clearly, you will understand that the government is very sympathetic to the needs of Ghanaians. We didn't set out to disparage any government. I think that there's benign intentions to help Ghanaians. It's a problem. 60% of Ghanaians find the advance rent problematic. 40% do not. That is from graduate renters whom our research focused on. So clearly there's the need, there's a problem. But the question is, the fact that you have recognized that something is a problem and you want to do something to help doesn't necessarily mean that whatever you throw at the problem is going to get it solved. So our interest has really been to sort of push policymakers to think about this critically, to think about the advance rent, why it exists, right, before we try to offer solution to it. As I said earlier on, throwing money to the problem won't get it solved. Why? Because the existence of the problem, if you want, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm a bit careful commenting on this. But then, from my layman's reading of the Rent Act 220 as amended, Section 25(5) clearly stipulates under offenses that it is an offense if someone is charging advance rent for more than 6 months for a longer tenancy. And it's also an offense for somebody charging advance rent for more than 3 months for shorter tenancy or a monthly tenancy. So from a legal standpoint, the intention of government to alleviate the plight of Ghanaians by setting up this scheme, which people working in both the formal and informal sector who have regular incomes can apply to get this access to this fund to pay the advance rent. Of course, the money wouldn't be given to you. It will be paid directly to your landlord. Your landlord must register with this scheme, must be paying the TIN and all these other things. The fact that you are going this approach suggests that you are endorsing the existence of the illegality. That is where our first concern is. That the fact that you want to help them is good, but then the problem for the reason why the problem exists is because of an illegality. Now, addressing the illegality goes beyond just throwing money. Why don't you also explore other innovative approaches, other new models where we can increase the stock? The problem is it's a demand and supply problem. It's a demand and supply problem. Until we increase the supply to meet the demand, the prices will keep going up and the black market will still be there. People will be paying the advance rate. So what you are doing is you are emboldening the landlords to keep charging this because they realize that after all, a whole government scheme has been set up to collect this advance rent for us so that we don't have to worry. So anybody thinking about building a house will know that, well, I'm going to charge 2 years. Already it has become a norm. And my colleagues have done a paper on this, which is under review. It has become a norm. But the fact that it has become a norm doesn't mean that people don't feel the pinch, right? So our approach is that this National Rental Assistance Scheme, the intention is benign, but then it's potentially endorsing an illegality. That is one thing. The other issue we pick from the proposed NRAS is the eligibility criteria. Yes, the document says that people who are working in both the formal and informal and who have regular incomes, right? So cleverly, the government has come out to defend, and in the interview, the BBC interviewer pushed me on this, that the politicians say that they haven't even implemented it. So where are we getting all our arguments from? We don't have to pretend as if we are not Ghanaians. We live in Ghana, so we all grew up in Ghana. We have lived as tenants for a long time, and we know when government set up projects and schemes, how these things are designed. Perhaps we have learned something new, but there is a tendency to limit this eligibility criteria of regular income to people who are working in the formal sector. They say that formal and informal, but the mere fact that you use the concept of regular income, there's a tendency for you to construct or interpret that regular income or associate it with a certain level of formality. Somebody who pays taxes, somebody who collects his income from an employer who is registered with maybe Ghana Register of Companies and all these things. And this tendency risks denying over 90% of the labor force, right, who work in the informal economy. But then their concept of regularity is not as what you typically associate with people working in the formal sector. Somebody is a seamstress, right? They can't tell you, if you go and ask you, so how much do you make maybe in a month or so? They may not be able to tell you that, well, I make a certain amount of my earning is consistent, but they can give you a fair amount of insight into how they create wealth, how they're able to survive and other things. Such information is valuable. But then if you want to stick to the notion of regular income, as we understand somebody working in a bank, you know that you have a standard contract that specifies that you need to be paid 10,000 Ghana cedi a month. You can fairly deduce that. So our interest is to make the government think broadly about the potential exclusionary nature of this particular proposition. It hasn't been implemented. We hope the government will reflect more on this and then build this, think about how do we make sure that at the end of the day, this whole idea doesn't end up excluding people. Another thing that we want to emphasize is we always tend to create institutions and leave them at the national level. The question is, this national rent assistance scheme, to what extent are they going to be decentralized? How are they going to be aligned with district assemblies? I think for me, my bane is that we create institutions for local governance and then we don't allow them to work. We practically isolate them from a lot of things. Housing in the UK, as you rightly mentioned, is a local issue. Local authorities in most countries assess what their local housing needs are. So every local authority can tell you that in the next 5 years in Cambridge, you are building this amount of houses. This amount is going to come from private landlords. This is going to come from social as housing associations. This is going to come from this. We have a similar structure. We have a similar local governance structure in Ghana, district assemblies. We need to start thinking about the fact that housing is not only needed in Accra and Kumasi. Houses are needed in my village in Elubo. Housing is needed everywhere. And it is the district and the decentralized governance system. They are the ones whose responsibility it is to provide development at the local level. So we should find a way to decentralize this whole project so that the houses won't all be built in Accra. So if you build everything in Accra and people in other regions don't have houses, then people will keep moving to the cities. So we need to think differently and make sure that we are committed to make institutions work. And that is what I would say. So I think the government's intention is noble. They want to help Ghanaians. And we should all be appreciative that government thinks about this thing. It's an issue that the government has taken an interest in. We want to suggest that the approach may present a problem if it's not thought through carefully. So that's what I would say.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Juvenile. Viewers, thanks again for tuning into the Discovery Show TDS TV here on Facebook and on YouTube. We are speaking to Dr. Richmond Juvenile Ehwi, who is a research associate at Cambridge, at University of Cambridge or Cambridge University here in the UK. I've known him since university days. And I mean, we're talking about problems surrounding rent, land acquisition and all that across Africa and I mean, in Ghana. So thank you again for watching. I can see my brother Kwesi Mensah, you do Texan watching. Texan, thanks for tuning in. I can see Nanaya Osei Gideon, Dr. Josephine Abuaje-Mensah, Irene Fusuhima Bosman. I can see Nanaya Osei Gideon. Okay, I've already mentioned that. I can also see Hilda Ochre. Hilda, thanks for watching. Clean Love Pogo. Clean Love, thanks for watching. And I can see Dr. Solomon Repasapong. Thanks again for watching. And my brother Evans Dudu. So few comments, I mean, have come through. I've already read one from Mr. James Kwabena-Opon, who is the executive producer for this program. This one is from Clean Love Pogo. Clean Love says, but government paying advance for the youth is a lazy approach of solving the problem of housing deficit. Government schemes should be towards increasing housing instead, and it will force the landlords to reduce the number of years advance demanded. And Dr. Solomon Repasapon says, I can see and hear you, Dr. Juvenile. Thank you, Solomon. Kwesi Mensah, you do text, my brother says, a pleasure. Regards, Doc. So that is your own, schoolmate. I mean, your school, how do you call yourself? Is it Giant or Saint? How do you call yourself?
Old Saint.
Old Saint.
Yeah, Old Saint.
Fantastic. So thank you very much. I mean, it's amazing. Cambridge, you have been at Cambridge for MPhil, for PhD, and now you are there for postdoctoral. What worked for you? Is it hard work? What exactly? And after that, just tell us a bit about that. If there's anyone out there who want to do masters, PhD, what tips can you offer? Let's do that in the next 5 minutes. Yeah.
Tell you how I got into Cambridge. Like most people, I was fortunate enough to have a good number of my lecturers coming to study in Cambridge, particularly in land economy. So it was quite common for some of them to always reminisce on Cambridge. We've been doing lectures. One of my lecturers, Mr. Jonathan Aite, would always come to class sometimes wearing his Cambridge jacket, and you see the crest on his chest, and yeah. So you realize that your lecturers who stood before you had been to these places, and they talk about it in a way that makes it possible, it's doable. So it sort of stirred up some aspiration in us that yeah, we could also do it. And I'm very thankful to our teaching and research assistants at the time, particularly my own colleague, Dr. Louis Abedi Asante, Dr. Kenneth Shamai, Dr. Felix Ajimai. As in, these were people who were just a year or two ahead of us. By the method that after leaving school, you hear that, oh, this person is in Cambridge, this person is in Cranfield, this person is doing further studies, was an incentive for us to push forward, do the best, follow the steps, and then get the necessary advice we could get from them, how they managed to do it. Yeah, so we didn't achieve this on our own. We tapped into the knowledge, the resources of these people, and the paths that these people have already charted. So for me, that was the motivation. But of course, like any other thing, you need to put in the work, right? I will tell you that when I was applying for my master's, I made about 55 applications, Commonwealth scholarship applications. Yeah, 55, and I got 5 scholarships, Commonwealth, and at the end of the day, I chose Cambridge. Not everybody will have that luxury to apply 55. Why? Because I was a TA. I worked very closely with the lecturers. I could easily get references. And one of my lecturers told me, Richmond, you just go abroad and go and study. Even if they give you music, go and do it. It's better, right? So I remember jovially, one of my lecturers in dramatic engineering told me that, Richmond, if Oxford gives you music, go and do it. As in go and then do music, although you have no knowledge in music. But of course, this is just on a lighter note, right? But it's just to say that you really have to put in the effort, right? There are a lot of things that you need to familiarize yourself with application process, the scholarship application process, and all that, writing personal statements, writing scholarship essays, and all these other prerequisites that you must meet. Yeah, that's the what you had to do to get into Cambridge. And of course, Cambridge is a big university. The name of the university itself puts a lot of pressure. It's not easy. I won't sit here and say, oh, Cambridge, I said it was a slam dunk for me in Cambridge. It was tough. It was very tough during the masters. The Michaelmas term went by by the time I opened my eye and could see Jack, the whole term, our terms were very short. We have 6 weeks and the term is over. So you start in October, and by set of December, term is already done. So you go, where did the whole term go? And we could compress a number of things, something that probably took you like maybe a year to learn in KNUST or whatever. You learn them in maybe 6 weeks. So it was really tough. To put it simply, it was really tough. And I wasn't the only person experiencing this. I traveled out with most of my colleagues who were teaching assistants. So we were often speaking, some of my colleagues in Oxford, Birmingham. You talk to them and the experience is similar, that the pace, everything, the expectation, all these things weigh on you, right? But you get a hang of it very soon, as in if you don't despair, you take the encouragement, the fact that others have been through it. They've done it. So you don't let everything collapse around you. You pick up the pace, and then you tell yourself that I'll keep pressing, I'll keep pushing on. So the difficulties, the challenges, they are there, but they are surmountable once you understand how this system works. Trust me, we are super intelligent. Ghanaians, as in I always take my heart out for that. We are super intelligent. I am not saying this to sort of patronize anybody. We are very intelligent. Ghanaians are we are very resilient, right? So what we have been through in our secondary schools, in our universities, to be able to get to where we are, it just tells everybody you can do it. As in, yes, the initial settling in and challenges will be there, but once you get a hang of it, that's it. So I guess that's been for me the inspiration. I've always said that I can do it, and I always tell myself that once I've been able to do this step, the other step can be done. I always look back and I always celebrate the little achievements that I have gained. I don't just look at the task ahead and how big it is. I always look back and say, but I have this success, which means that I'm still making strides. So little by little, every strike, every little thing I do, you celebrate it. And before you realize, you will even see how huge it is, what you have accomplished, right? But then if you just sit back and you look at how insurmountable the task is, you might give up and say, well, you can't. But trust me, little by little, do the little you can do with a bit of faith, with a bit of prayer, a bit of hard work. I'm sure every challenge is surmountable. So that's what I will say. Getting into Cambridge has its own challenges. Of course, the standard is very high. I won't say that any other way. The Vice Chancellor has really echoed that Cambridge is great and it's notable because we haven't compromised on our standards. So once you find yourself in this environment, you need to also make sure you live up to the standard. And that is it. And I just want to say everybody is capable. Cambridge is not for super sharks. I don't even see myself as one. So it's just people who are determined and who are willing to put in the work. And the support is here, the environment, everything is here. So yeah.
Fantastic. We are so proud of you, Juvenile. I mean, those of us who have known you from campus, family, friends, and all that, we are so excited to see you rise. Just because of time, just quickly, 1 or 2 minutes, are you able to give some general tips about the application itself? I mean, what can strengthen people's application process, not only in Cambridge, but generally, any tips, 1 or 2 minutes? I know it's a tight time, but if you can manage that for us, thank you.
Yeah, I'm torn between speaking for bachelor's, MPhil, or PhD, because I don't think that the data I have now is even up to date when it comes to writing, getting into a postgraduate program. I can speak for PhD because that's
sure.
fairly recent to me. Yeah, I guess the point is obviously every application process. There are requirements you need to meet. You need to get a grade. I'll use Cambridge as an example because that's what I know. You need to have a distinction. In exceptional cases, you can be admitted without a distinction. That is when you have proven that you have the capability to do a research. So
which in our jurisdiction is first class honors, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So if you are thinking about research, for example, obviously you need to have a proposal, which essentially aligns with the department you want to be admitted to, what the researchers there are doing, so that you can get someone who is interested and who can offer you the support and the guidance. So I think your research proposal is very critical. And then of course, it's one thing getting into the program, it's another thing getting funding or scholarship. And a wide range of factors go into scholarship. Of course, your merit, your academic merit itself is a key component of you being ranked for the scholarship, like your suitability. But then the strength of your proposal, what you propose to research, the relevance it has, how contemporary is it, clearly articulating why your research must be conducted. Why is it that you should be the one to be admitted as opposed to other people, right? In a way, it's an opportunity for you to really market your research, market yourself and market your research. You are the best person to do this research. This research is critical. It aligns with broader developmental agenda. We live in a COVID world, and I think that most funders, most scholars are looking for ways we can understand how our world is going to be post-COVID. So if you are in this particular age and time, every research you want to think around, it's important to just think about in what way does my research has something to do with COVID. Because that is the leitmotif for this particular age and time we find ourselves in. So yes, you may have something that you are very much passionate about. That doesn't mean throw it away, but think around it critically and see how does COVID, because people really want to understand this. It's looking as if it's going to be a reality for probably the next few years or even a decade, right? So funders are equally interested in understanding what we can learn from this, the way it changes the way we build, the way we live, the way we travel, the way the built environment is organized, all other things that this pandemic has impacted. So the contemporary nature of your work, of course, against a bigger global agenda of what we have, the new urban agenda, sustainable development goals, the Africa 2063 agenda, all these things are broader global challenges or goals that developing countries and other people aspire to achieve. So, but there's always the need to also understand the esprit de corps for that particular moment and find a way to link your research to it. And with contacting the right person in the faculty or the department you want to research with, and making a very good CV that shows that you are very much committed to the research and you have the capability, I'm sure you can easily get in and get even funding for research at the doctoral level.
Fantastic, fantastic. I know because of time, you would have, be quite extensive about this, but thanks so much. What you've said is absolutely fantastic. And even before that, you had already touched on some of the things you did, and it clearly fit into this. So thank you so much. Viewers, we are speaking to Dr. Richmond Juvenile Ehwi, who is a research associate at Cambridge University here in the UK. And he's taking us through his life. He shares very fantastic, things with us, taking us through what rent and land acquisition problems we are facing as Africans in Ghana. He's actually tried to explain what we have to do to be able to get into a PhD program and all that. So thank you very much, Juvenile. Just want to read a few comments. Again, I can see Kwesi Mensah you do text and watch, and Nanaya or say Gideon, Dr. Joseph Naboajemensa, Irene Fosuhima Bosman, Hilda Ochre, Clean Love Pogo. I can see Dr. Solomon Repasapong, my brother Evans Diodu. I can see Samuel Achrim watching, and I can see Dr. Sopokwajima, that's Mrs. Achrim watching. So Achrim says, I know most UK masters are MSc or MA. How different is the MPhil? Just a few seconds if you can help us.
Cambridge MPhil is different from all other university MPhils. The Cambridge MPhil is very much, it's a taught MPhil, often with a research component. It's not a classic MPhil by research that you will find in maybe Ghana or even in other Scandinavian countries or other European countries. So our MPhils are usually short, 9 months maximum. You are done with it. So it's very much coursework and a dissertation. That's for land economy. In other subjects like development studies, I know that you can do papers, just write 2 or 3 essays, and even in education, you do papers and then you can get your MPhil. So the Cambridge MPhil is quite different. It's not a classic MPhil by research that you see in other universities where you do 1 year coursework and then you use another 1 year to do a research. Ours is a split between the coursework and the research or papers. Yeah.
Fantastic. People are very amazed at the fact that you put in 55 applications. So our reimbursement is saying, hey, 55. Some have more oil. And Mrs. Achim, Doctors, yeah, go for it.
That's for the UK. I haven't talked about Australia. I haven't talked about the US. I haven't talked about Canada.
So, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Perseverance. That's what I get here. Mrs. Achim, Dr. Sopokwajima also said 55. You are really determined. Indeed, he's so determined. And I know we are almost getting to the end of our time, but quickly, I can see Dr. Solomon Repasapon watching. He's a PhD student at the University of Oxford here in the UK. And just to get a bit outside academia, back on campus, you were a church executive. I worked with you. I'm not sure you've forgotten, by which time Dr. Solomon Repasapon was my roommate. And I remember those times how I worked with you. And I want to say that you have contributed to my Christian life. So thank you so much for doing that. People have advanced this argument that Christianity back home in Africa, and let's say in this case, Ghana, and here in the UK are two different things. People come here and they cannot hold on to their religious faith and other things. Per your experience, how is it? Do you agree to this argument? And what has been your personal argument? Do you think it's the same or it's a challenge when you travel, especially to advanced countries like the UK?
Thank you, Precious. I can certainly speak for everybody. And I won't attempt to say those who are advancing that argument is right or wrong, because the variables are different. I can only speak for Cambridge because for me, I'm very thankful that I found myself in an environment where the city and the university and all other activities that take place in this particular, it's influenced by that consciousness that you have very high learned people. So typically where you find one person come and give a very long speech, extempore, and sometimes almost a monologue of a sermon, the person sharing all his revelations. And I haven't experienced that. I was fortunate to be in a congregation. My pastor is obviously a Ghanaian, but then after his sermon, we discuss. And my pastor is humble enough to sometimes defer to us that I think I probably don't understand this fully. Why? Because we get into the Bible, we study the Bible and we try to understand the nuances. We don't just read the Bible and say, well, this is what is written in the Bible, so this is what it is. And because it's coming from my pastor, that is it, I'll have to take it hook, line, and sinker and swallow it. No. Like the Berean church, we dissect the scripture. We point out that Paul was being a sexist in this particular context. This person was being a chauvinist. We have to talk about them, essentially. Because what is really the point? If I went to Sunday school and then I was taught that as in God is a good God, he loved every man the same. And then at a certain point in time, I realized that, but the Bible says that for Jacob I have loved, for Esau I have hated. But I'm not allowed to question, why would God make such a statement? Are we probably misrepresenting God? Could it be that is the authors of those books whose interpretation is not well captured? You see, so we must allow room, and that is what I have. So I haven't lost my faith. I can't be where I am without God. The hand of God, as in this 1 hour, is not enough for me to tell you the kind of things I've been through, the ordeals, but the way God has worked. So there's no gain saying that as in you lose your faith or no. But then your eyes is exposed. You begin to understand. Yes, the pressure system can make you probably not go to church, but thank God, I'm in my living room. I can attend multiple services in Ghana, listen to whoever I want to listen to. So we have a certain notion of religion. We have a certain notion of being a Christian, spiritual person, reading, going to church, fasting. Look at Pajo those days. We'll go and pray. Students, we haven't even eaten well. We are malnourished, but we go and fast and we pray and all that. And reflect in academia, we don't do well. Not because God is not good to us, but we are not well nourished. You see, so you come to a certain environment where you don't need to start thinking, and most of us, to be honest with you, some of the prayer we pray because of fear. You sit in a bus traveling from Accra to Kumasi, you are praying because you are uncertain. The reason why you are praying is not because there are demons and witches who are after your blood, it's because the road is terrible. And our drivers, some of them don't even qualify to hold their license. When you come here, you sit in a bus, sometimes you don't even pray, you don't think about accidents. I'm not saying accidents don't happen, but those are not the things that immediately strike you. Why? Because you have a certain certainty that the person driving the coach has got a license to drive it. The roads are fairly good. So I don't have to pray out of fear. If I'm praying, I'm just meditating and reflecting and just thinking about God. So I think the concept of Christianity and how we worship God is entirely different. These people don't go to church on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't even have the time. As a researcher, I don't have the time. But I'm always conscious that I have a being. As in, I don't own myself. I defer to God. I rely on his wisdom. He comes through for me. It is enough. We need to separate the practices. Fasting, going to church, singing, giving. Yes, it's good. It builds your own conscience and other things. That is not the essence of Christianity. The essence of Christianity for me is that knowledge of your sonship and your position with Christ Jesus. At any point in time, God doesn't love me when I start praying and I don't pray. His love doesn't change because I went to church or I didn't go to church. No, he loves me just the way and for those of us who are parents, it's very practical for me. My little girl doesn't need to do certain things for me to tell her I love her. Yes, sometimes I get mad when she does certain things silly, but the love I have for her, it's not contingent on anything that she does. It's because she's a part of me. When I see her, I see myself in her. And that is the knowledge, wherever we find ourselves, whether in Ghana or whatever, that is the knowledge we need to hold. So that it won't be like, oh, he came to abroad, he's not even joining prayer meetings, he's not praying for this long, his spiritual level has gone down. What is spiritual level? What is all this? So that's what I would say. I'm sure I've muddied the waters for some people, but this whole argument about people come abroad and the person needs to pay the bill. The bill get paid by themselves. You have to pay the bills, so they have to go and work. So that's it.
All right. Thank you very much, Juvenile. Thank you so much. I know we've gone over our time a little bit, viewers.
That's fine.
Thank you so much. I can see Kofi Ajimai watching, Evans Diodu, Dr. Solomon Repasapong. Solo says, Kwesi, you can give pressure. So when Dr. Solomon Repasapong completes his PhD, he's entitled to be called Doctor. So Dr. Solomon Repasapong. All right. Ahonia Augustine said, I don't remember praying on the train or bus. Clean Love said, the difference with Christianity for me, I think in Ghana, our faith is material driven, and in developed countries, it's love driven. If you love God enough back home, you won't struggle here to worship. About 90% of prayer topics are answered in developed countries without prayer. Christianity is more practical in developed countries. Interested how this is literally generating a whole 1 hour argument, 1 hour conversation, because I see people interested in this particular bit. All right. I can see Aaron Bosman, Dr. Justin Abuajemensa, Dokas Opoku Ajimai. I can see Samuel Achrim, Kwesi Mensah Diodu Texan, and Hilda Ochre, Nanayao Osei Gideon, and those that I cannot see. Apologies, it's not intentional. So thank you very much, Dr. Juvenile, Richmond Juvenile Ehwi, for sitting with us on the Discovery Show TDS TV. This is a show that seeks to interview professionals in the diaspora who are making significant impact in the area of politics, religion, and academia, of course, and the likes. And it is proudly produced by Mr. James Kwabena Opon, and I am your host, Precious Adade. Juvenile, what are your final words in the next 1-2 minutes? What will you say to people who are watching you? In summary, what you've said so far.
Well, you didn't make me talk about gated communities, which is my whole PhD thesis. I'm surprised we had this conversation. And
Juvenile, let's talk about that in 5 minutes.
No. I just mentioned it. It's just one. That's what my research, my PhD research.
Yeah, please talk about it in 5 minutes. Please do.
Yeah. I guess what I would say is, oftentimes when people approach me with the subjects, the views are divided, and it's dichotomizing: are they good or bad? Do we need them all? And I just want to emphasize that it's something whose time has come.
Sorry, just to say that, re-emphasize that you're talking about gated communities.
Yes, gated communities.
Yeah.
Yes, gated communities. Yeah, this is a stage we see in Ghana and other things. I just want to emphasize that it is a phenomenon whose time has come. When people persistently pay their property rates to their local authorities, and their roads don't get built, and their drains don't get cleaned up, and their electricity is not stable, they will be forced to look for other alternatives. When their lands are not secured because they don't have the money to hire land guards, but then a private developer can go through all this and then provide for them, then they are more amenable to move into gated communities where they know that their money is working for them. So that's just the thought. So I think that the issue is not about whether they are good or bad. It's also it's a contextual issue. They are there to serve a particular niche, right? And that is why they exist. Of course, whatever their unintended consequences are is another subject. But I just want to end by saying that I think everyone is on a particular course, right? It is good to draw inspiration from people, but never aim to copy people. Be yourself, because the path God has set for you is unique. Sometimes we look at people, we wish we want to be them, and then we miss the picture. Even the good thing is that sometimes we never even get lost, because you can't miss out on God. God is always there for, even when we veer off, God always brings us back, right? So I just want to say, put in the best wherever you are, whatever you are doing, put in your best. You never know. As in, there are things you did, you thought that, oh, I'm doing this, I'm not really seeing the fruits. And trust me, in subsequent times, you realize that, oh, this is why I think I did this. I work with Precious, and here we are today talking about this. That network that we built, that is what we are leveraging today. So whatever you are doing, it might not be paying today. It might seem insignificant, but trust me, in the future, it will prove useful. So work hard, do your best, rely on God, and then keep an open mind. That's my closing remark.
Thank you so much, Juvenile. I really appreciate the time you've given to us. I mean, in fact, we've gone over our time for about 15 minutes, but thanks for your magnanimity in sitting with us. And I mean, your explanations, I mean, especially with the issue of rent, land acquisition. I mean, I had issues understanding all these, but I mean, as my viewers will also agree to, you've really dissected the issue, you've explained it to bit, and I think it is more convoluted than we thought. So thank you so much. And also for the issue of gated communities and all the other things I may not be able to touch on. We really appreciate your time. We hope that sometime we might sit with you around these issues. And our prayer is that God should continue to bless you and I mean keep pushing you higher and higher. Thank you so much for the impact you've made in the lives of many people. For viewers, he's also a columnist in Modern Ghana. So he writes on social issues, political issues, of course, policies and all that. So he's a very big man. It's a big man. So thank you very much. You heard him talking about he's speaking on BBC. I mean, he's doing exceptionally. When I'm saying this merely to illustrate the point, but not to boast on your behalf, that we are proud of how far you've come and keep doing all you are doing. Keep working hard, and may God also use you to bless other lives. Already, I'm receiving a lot of text message. I can see one here on the Facebook. Ahonia Augustin said, I have really enjoyed today's program. Kudos. So people have already, agreed with me that you've done so well today. Thank you so much, Juvenile. And thank you very much. Viewers, thank you for watching and thank you for sticking with us. Catch you some other time. Thank you, Juvenile, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.